Monaco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. We've got Eric King back, aka King Kong 9888. Eric, it's great to have you on to talk about what's going on in the Middle East.
Well, thank you very much for having me back on again, on your show, Mario.
Oh, you're welcome. And we spoke the last 24 hours about the situation. And one of the things that a lot of people speculate is that President Trump and the Americans, what they're trying to do is fight back against BRICS. For example, the events of early January in Caracas was part of that, trying to get back control of the oil, get the Venezuelans to sell their oil in dollars. And now with what's happening in Iran. So a lot of people think they're fighting back against BRICS. I personally think it's a little bit too late, and I actually think it could backfire. And why do I say that? Well, because a lot of the Gulf states, for example, today the FT is reporting that they could review overseas investments to ease financial strains caused by the Iran war. We're also seeing that they're complaining that they're not being defended by the U.S. bases that have been set up there over the last few decades, that they are abandoning them. So my take, Eric, is that usually what politicians try to do ends up backfiring, just like what happened in 2022. They thought they would easily get rid of change regime in Russia with the Ukraine war. But what's happened is de-dollarization has strengthened even more. And I think, and I want to your opinion on this. What do you think of the petrodollar? Are the Americans going to be able to resuscitate it or revive it, or are we seeing the death of the petrodollar?
So, Mario, I just want to say, there are many different scenarios in this situation, right? With in regards of the war in Iran, with the U.S. and Israel. So, I think to properly address your question, we need to look at basic scenarios that that this situation may turn out to be. Okay, so number one, I think this is what a lot of the pro-war people are saying. So let's say everything that Trump is telling us is true. Okay, there's some damages to the U.S. bases all over the Middle East, but it's not super critical. They can let's say they can rebuild it within couple years. I don't know, maybe a year, right? Okay, let's say that's the scenario, and let's say they manage to regime change in Iran, so they install somebody somebody they like, Israel and the U.S. likes, just like what they did in Iraq and Syria, okay, in Tehran. Let's say that happens. So that like scenario is they bomb the Iranians into submission, and they essentially win. I use that term loosely in a very short period of time, like what Trump is saying, which is um, 8, 10 days, like maybe 2 weeks, up to 2 weeks, and they win and they achieve their strategic objectives. So, so in that scenario, what happens? In that scenario, I think oil is going to fall really hard. Okay, just like Desert Storm 1 and Desert Storm 2, okay, the two Gulf Wars in the past, when it was apparent that the US military have had overwhelming advantages. Like, I don't know if you remember back then, right? They have like the night vision videos of the smart bombs going, the bunker busters, right? Like bombing Saddam Hussein back then. And they were just winning like every day. Like kind of like what Trump said, at the congressional address, right? Whatever you call it, right? He said, "I'm tired of winning," like that, right? Back then. So let's say they're winning And like I said, they achieve all their objectives. Oil would fall hard, just like DS1 and DS2. And in terms of gold and silver,
Before we continue with our interview with Eric, aka King Kong 9888, I want to talk a little bit about our sponsor today. To do that, I'll start with a billionaire who's a legendary figure in the precious metal space. That's Eric Sprott. He created also Sprott Asset Management, managing billions in precious metals focused funds. They also have one of the world's largest physical silver trusts, PSLV. And recently, Eric Sprott predicted that silver could reach at least 150, maybe even 300 in this current cycle.
So I can believe that gold silver should go back to 15. Okay, it's only mined at 8-1. Right, it's in the Earth's crust at like 10 or 11-1. Why the hell should it have traded at 100-1? And it's already down at what, 67, 68-1. I think it's going right to 15, 1 to 15. Okay, so let's say if the gold price is 4,500, which is near, makes the calculation easy. Silver should be at $300.
And I had a look around at which companies Eric Sprott is a shareholder of, where the main metal is silver, or a pure play on silver as it's called. And there are very few of those. But there is one, our sponsor, in which Eric Sprott owns 4% of the company, and it's called Kootenay Silver. Yeah, that's our sponsor today. And I think it's one of the top pure silver plays for 2026. The ticker symbol is KOOYF, and it's available on Schwab, Fidelity, Interactive Brokers, and E-Trade. So back in the middle of last year, when silver was trading around 36, and right now it's trading above 80, of course, a couple of investment houses, Research Capital and Red Cloud, they gave a price target of around $2.80 Canadian for Kootenay Silver. And right now, the price is trading below 2 Canadian dollars. It's around 180. But Kootenay Silver is probably one of the top pure silver plays for 2026 and forward, I would say. Kootenay Silver owns 4 silver deposits. Quality silver assets are scarce, as we know. There's very few pure silver play producers out there. Yet, Kootenay owns 4 of them. In terms of the asset, well, they own a staggering 223 million ounces of silver equivalent in the measured and indicated category, and an additional 111 million ounces silver equivalent in the inferred category. We know the physical shortage and deficits are mounting as well. The global silver market has entered its 6th consecutive year of structural deficit, with the 2026 shortfall projected at 67 million ounces. And I would say some analysts think it's going to be even more than 67 million. So this chronic imbalance follows a massive 2025 deficit of anywhere between 150 to 230 million ounces, and contributing to an accumulated gap of nearly 900 million ounces since 2021. So this is quite rare because only a handful of companies in the world control deposits of this scale and grade. This is the most important piece of information I can share with you right now. And the president and CEO of Kootenay Silver is James McDonald. And I think he's definitely ready for this bull market in commodities. And a little more about him. Well, he played a pivotal role in creating Alamos Gold, a company that delivered quadruple-digit returns during the early to mid-2000s gold bull market. Kootenay Silver is a pure play silver company. We think the company is well positioned under the leadership of James McDonald. So to give you an example, in 2020, still a full 2 years before the company's most successful drill hole, which was done on September 8th, 2022, Eric Sprott bought shares for 4 Canadian dollars, double their current price. And in 2025, Eric Sprott added more shares. And as we wrap up here, I'll show you some interesting valuations. As you can see, enterprise value per ounces, valuation of key silver developers. And Kootenay, it's been valued at 36 cents per troy ounce. It's right at the bottom in terms of valuation. So with silver above $70 an ounce, with global all-in sustaining costs to mine silver sitting just below $25, the viability of advancing projects into production is far higher than 1 year ago. So finally, Kootenay Silver has a lot of cash, so they can do a lot more drilling. They've got $18 million Canadian in cash. And with its market cap around 180 million Canadian dollars, it's scheduled to drill about 70,000 meters in the coming 12 months. That's about $2,500 of market cap for every meter. And as you can see, no other silver company has so much drilling planned underway with that low of a market cap. So before we resume our interview with Eric, just wanted to tell you that you need to do your own research on this. This is not investment advice. This is just dissemination of information. Yeah, do your homework. And as I said, though, I think the bull market in gold and silver is still in its initial innings. We still got a few more years to go. And one thing I would say is silver always outperforms gold at the end of the bull market. So there's still a lot of room for silver.
If they manage to fix all their other issues in the long run, maybe it's possible that gold may enter a longer period of consolidation. But eventually, I think it'll still go up because they just got a habit of spending a lot of money, right? Okay, the US debt is still going to pile up. So even if they, let's say, control Iran and China is forced to use a portion of the US dollars to be recycled back in US treasuries, okay, to buy new US treasuries and to, because what they do is they get US dollars, they buy crude oil with it, denominated in US dollars, but they also hold some US dollars to buy T-bills because they're short duration. And when they need the US dollars to buy oil, they just convert the T-bills to US dollars to buy oil, right? Okay. So in that scenario, like I said, I think gold, silver consolidate, but it'll still go up in the long run, in the medium long run, because for gold, is simply a measure of for sure the excess money that they're printing, right? So I think it will just take longer, it'll go up. For silver, I think for the US to reshore a lot of their manufacturing, which is in the long-term plan, right? They need the price of silver to be above $100 to make it worthwhile for the stuff to move back to the US, like smelting, etc. So that's scenario number one. And then I think scenario number two.
One
Yes.
question, Eric, for scenario one.
Yes.
What do you think happens to the Gulf cooperation countries? Because they're not very happy with what's happened to them. The American forces, they abandoned all the bases there that was supposed to defend them. Do you think if the US wins, like in this number one scenario, they'll go back to the US, or do you think they might even, they might be thinking of like joining BRICS? Do you think that's possible?
I think in scenario one, where the US actually wins and manage regime change in a very short time in Iran, I think the Gulf states are eventually going to have a deal with the US.
Okay.
So the
Okay.
BRICS is still going to exist, but the
Yeah.
Gulf states, they get whatever compensation for the failed defense, right,
Yeah.
of their buildings, infrastructure, whatever, and then things will just like the U.S. allies, right?
Yeah.
The partnership is going to get possibly stronger, right?
Yeah.
Because like somebody pointed out, the Arabs and the Muslims in general, right? There's a lot of at least on the surface, there's a lot of infighting because they're like there are different sects
Yeah.
within the Muslim religion, right?
That's right.
So
Yeah.
anyway, so like that may happen. That's scenario number one. So, but I think that's not going to stop the BRICS because they're like China, India, Russia. That's like it's just deglobalization essentially,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like they still want like alternative in gold, um, in place of U.S. Treasury bonds. So, yeah, it's going to be slower in terms of the quotation marks de-dollarization, but in scenario one, it's still going to happen. So that's like again, I'm going to remind everybody. Scenario one, if Donald Trump achieves his you know um, military objectives in Iraq, which is replacing the current regime with current government of Iran with a new American puppet regime. But that in itself can be a screw up, right? Look at what happened to
Yeah.
Afghanistan. Like
Yeah.
they can just screw that up. So like, again, even in scenario number one, it can be hairy. So let's get into scenario number two, shall we? Okay. So
Yes,
scenario number
Eric. Yeah.
two
Yeah.
is probably like it's the bad situation for the US, if you can
Eric,
call it
can I
that.
ask you one
Yes.
thing? Uh,
Yes.
you just repeat a little bit the end there, and then after you say, let's get to scenario number two, like pause a little bit.
Okay. So let's talk about scenario number two now.
Okay. Let's look at scenario two then, Eric.
Okay. So scenario two is if the audience can just pretend that this scenario is possible. Okay. Scenario number two is if the US um, fighting Iran along with Israel, right, is actually facing a lot of difficulties, like what the alternative media is reporting. I know a lot of people question the authenticity of these reports, but let's just pretend that it's actually happening, or it might be actually happening, right? Because I mean, I'm seeing a lot of credible sources reporting these things. Like, for example, the U.S. and Israel using up their munitions, like their anti-ballistic missile, their own missiles, right? They're just using it up when Iran is, firing these missiles at U.S. installations and, Gulf partner, Gulf countries, infrastructure and U.S. bases all over the place, all over the Gulf, right? So let's say that is true. That is bogging down the U.S. and the Iranian and the Israelis, and Iranians have success in shutting down the Straits of Hormuz. Okay, so scenario number one, like that all that is resolved, right? Because the U.S. won. Scenario number two is saying that I wouldn't say the Iranians are winning, but it's a bogged down situation, like what's happening in Ukraine with Russia, or like what happened to the US and Vietnam. Like the thing just get bogged down, and eventually the US might have to send ground troops to try to fight the Iranians. So in that scenario, I think, like I said, the Strait of Hormuz is shut down. I think oil is going to cross 100 US dollars per barrel. That's a bad situation, okay, for everybody involved. Like we were talking off camera, the entire world is involved, right? In that scenario, you have like the US, Iran, Israel, and then you have all the Gulf countries, and then you have China, Russia, Europe, right? Everybody's involved because everybody's affected. 20% of global oil supply and natural gas come from, go through the Straits of Hormuz. So this is bad situation. Oil spikes above $100. What happens to gold and silver? That's the $1 million question that everybody asks me, right? So in that scenario, I'm sad to say, in the short term, I think gold and silver are going to dump. Like the prices are going to dump. Just it's simple. The logic is simple. In that scenario, let's say I'm just going to use Japan as an example. I know Japan has 250 days of oil reserves, but they're going to be freaking out. They potentially might start dumping everything, including US Treasury bonds, by the way, in this scenario. Because the US, number one, the US is quotation marks losing, okay? Number two, they need all the US dollars they can get their hands on to buy the marginal oil in the world that is denominated in US dollars. Make sense? So everything gets sold to raise US dollars. So you have that US dollar liquidity squeeze. US dollars versus other currencies go up. Everything goes down, including US Treasury bonds. Gold and silver goes down temporarily, right? Because they're selling everything to try to get oil. And I'm sorry to say this actually might happen. Okay? So just be prepared mentally that this happens. This is sort of like, I don't know how severe it will be.
A bit like
March
March
2020,
yeah.
Yeah, 2020 is an example of that,
Yeah.
right? I don't know how severe this is going to be. So they're going to dump everything, raise US dollars to buy oil, including this time. The only difference is that they are, if you look at the US Treasury bond prices right now, they are not rising, they're dipping, right? So including US Treasuries. Normally in the past, they run to US Treasuries, right? As a safe haven. This time, no. Everything got dumped, including US Treasuries, goes into oil.
But then I guess central banks would step in like they did in 2020. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
we've seen that the U.S. Treasury just announced they're going to step into the oil futures market. So they're not prepared to let things burn.
Okay, so after the initial dump, and they get what the fight for wherever marginal oil is done, then I think gold and silver is going to find the bottom and it's going to rebound pretty hard, just like 2020. So again, I'm just painting potential scenarios. I don't want to get into the nitty gritty because then people start arguing, nonstop about the details, right? So scenario number one, Donald Trump wins, okay, in his own terms. Number two, they get bogged down. And I talked about what gold and silver will do in both scenarios. So shall we get into scenario number three, Mario?
Yes, number three.
Number three, okay. So number three is it's interesting because it would be like Donald Trump in Israel or US and Israel would say, we won, but actually nothing changed. Okay. Like, what I mean is, of course they got rid of the senior leadership in Iran. That happened in day one and part of day two. But the current regime or government of Iran is the same. Nothing changes. And then the US runs out of munitions along with Iran and Israel, sorry. Israel and the US run out of munitions and they simply back off. So they stop bombing Iran, or they bomb Iran sporadically. Okay, they back off. So, but they declare victory. Okay, they declare victory, but they back off. So things are actually worse than before. But on the like propaganda or media side, they would declare victory. So what happens? Let's just like number one with oil in that scenario. In that scenario, I would think the oil would still dump because if the US backs off, the Iranians also might back off, right? Because they're not getting bombed anymore, and they would like oil to go through the strait as well because they make money by that, right? They sell oil to whoever wants to buy it, right? Like China, Southeast Asia, etc. So I think and actually India apparently buys a lot of Iranian oil. Now we find out, right? For real. So in that scenario, like I said, I think oil will back off and dump, but maybe not as severe as scenario number one. Okay. Gold and silver, I think might not dump in that scenario because now you don't have people racing to dump whatever they own to get US dollars to buy oil, right? It's back to normal, sort of. So I think gold and silver in that situation will probably go sideways, like not dump too much from where we are now, and then it'll find a find their feet, okay, and then it'll go up because in the mid to long term, I think the world, the institutions around the world, they're not stupid. They know what happened. They know that despite the rhetoric and the propaganda, right? They would know that the U.S. did not and Israel did not achieve their strategic objectives, and they simply just talk. It's just like a kind of like face-saving retreat for for Israel and the U.S., right? So
Yeah.
I think for gold and silver stackers, scenario number three is probably the best. That's like for lack of a better word, Mario, that's the taco. That's the
Yeah.
taco scenario,
Oh,
right?
taco. Yeah.
Like
And
taco
also,
scenario. Yeah,
also that would mean that the Gulf cooperation countries, they would pretty much be free to do what they want, and I think it would be the end of U.S. Power in the Middle East. People
correct.
just pretend they win and they just withdraw and say everything's fine, and Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapon, which they don't. But
Yes,
yeah, so yeah, like you said, scenario three is the best, really, not just for the world, but also for like precious metals investors.
absolutely. So I think today we painted all three scenarios. I mean, the like you can mix these three things. Like nothing is ever clean cut, right? So you can a mix of one and three. Some people come to me and say, "Hey,
Yeah,
they like the US may not do a regime change, but they
yeah,
might split Iran in 16 pieces."
yeah.
Okay. Like
Well,
and then they just encircle the
yeah,
old
the
regime in Persia, right? Like
yeah, I've heard that.
it's
I've heard
possible,
that
right?
theory that
Yeah.
they could break up Iran like Yugoslavia, but Iran has
Yes.
been like a one unified nation for thousands of years. So I think it's going to be harder. There is one scenario, Eric, that we didn't talk about, and we'll leave it for maybe another time, is that the regime change objective of Donald Trump and Israel actually boomerangs, and you see regime change in the U.S. and Israel, and Iran actually uh, is on top. That
Well,
one, that's probably not very probable, but that's something that might happen.
yeah, that's probably not probable either. But again, like even if you include that, that's four different
Yeah,
scenarios.
yeah,
It covers basically everything,
yeah,
and the people have to decide for themselves which
yeah,
scenario is more likely
yeah.
and position their money or their investments
Yeah.
properly. That's
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 what
all I'm saying.
that's
That's
what
all I'm
we're
saying.
here for, isn't
Yep.
it, Eric? Just to analyze what's going on and how that's going to affect our investments. We're not trying to take sides or cheer for any side. What we are cheering for, hopefully, is peace and that people don't get killed. That's what I would say. And Eric, with that, Could you tell the viewers where they can follow you? And yeah,
Well, my viewers can follow me on X at King Kong 9888.
great, Eric. And you also writing on Substack now?
I am. It's the same. It's the same handle. It's King
Yeah.
Kong 9888 on Substack.
Uh, Eric, it's always great to speak with you, and I wish you a great rest of the weekend. Take care. Bye.
Thank you, Mario. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.